Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Sparks, and we're starting a new video series today. So I have had several requests to do command block tutorials, and I haven't quite worked out how to do that before, but recently, as many of you know, I work for a company that makes educational games in Minecraft, using Minecraft to teach in classrooms. And Garrett, the head of the company, recently did a course in a school teaching them about Minecraft, and I was invited to attend, but unfortunately I was busy. So the children and the teachers in the class had questions about things they could do in Minecraft, and Garrett wasn't really his area of expertise to answer them. So I've taken down the questions via a form, and I'm going to answer them in this video. So we're talking about some ways of doing simple mechanics. So the idea with this series is that teachers and students, or just general viewers who want to know roughly how to do something in Minecraft, can ask, and I will explain it in the video. We're going to go from anything from a very simple question to something more complex, such as a simple mechanic or something like that. And the idea is I'll explain how I do it and suggest how that can then be used by you. Now, this world will be available for download in the video description, so you'll be able to play with all of this yourself. So we're going to start really simple here, because the first question we got was, what is a command block? I'm not very familiar with this concept. We'll get to some other stuff in a second. You can skip ahead if you want to via the bar at the bottom of the screen. You can see what I talk about in each section. A command block is a special kind of block within Minecraft which can be right-clicked to enter a piece of code. So anything that you want to make Minecraft do can go in there. So for example, we can use a say command and type something like hello. And a command block will activate the command that is inside it when it is powered by a power source, such as a button. So if we put down a button here and right-click the button, it will print hello in the chat. That's the say command. Any sort of redstone power will activate the command, so you can really control when it enters the command that you want it to. And by putting them in a certain order in the world, you can get them to activate in a certain order. So all of these are going to order from bottom to top, from negative x to positive x. Alright, so hopefully that's roughly explained what a command block is. Now the next question I had is, how can you make a type of block in the world give the player an effect when they stand on it without using a pressure plate? So what we have here is an example that I've set up with 3 different kinds of block. Now if I stand on this lime-stained clay, you can see that it's given me jump boost 3 and water breathing. If I stand on this sandstone block, it'll give me fire resistance. You'll also notice that there are no swirly particles around me. I'll show you how to do that as well. And if I stand on here, then it'll give me speed 3 and water breathing. And as soon as I step off, the effect is removed. So what we have here is something called a hyperclock, or a 20 Hertz clock. That's generally what it is called in the community. This is achieved using 2 fill commands. So the bottom command block here, which is the one which is activated the very first in this entire chain or line of command blocks, has this command inside it. This is a fill command, and these are the coordinates where it wants to put wool. So the tilde here indicates that the coordinate, the place you want to fill the command, is relative to the command block. So you've got X, Y, and Z. So this is basically telling it to put wool in all of these 3 locations. You're welcome to download these, change these numbers, and see what happens to see what each of those numbers represents. So this command block here is putting wool in all 3 of these locations. Then the next command block to be activated is this one up here, which puts redstone blocks in all 3 of these locations, which of course these redstone blocks will then trigger this bottom one here to put wool down again, and will also trigger this one here to put redstone block down again. So basically this is constantly replacing this redstone block with wool and back again. Visually it looks like it's not doing anything, but if we put another say command here, you'll notice that it is printing hello very quickly into the chat. This is happening 20 times a second, and it's the fastest that you can do anything in Minecraft. So let's get down to the actual commands here. For the green clay, this is the effect I've used for jump boost. So what we're using is something called an execute command. Execute tells the command block that instead of doing something as itself, as the command block, it's going to pretend that it is something else. In this case, we're using @A. This means all players. So if you put @A in a command, it means that every player is going to be targeted. And we are telling it to detect stained hardened clay 1 block below the player. So this is detecting -1 in the Y, which is directly below the player, for stained clay, and we're using the damage value of 5. Now the damage value is something that a lot of blocks in Minecraft have. I have a special thing set up here. Let me just show you. If I go into here, you can see that it just says, if I go to the wool, it'll say light blue wool. But if you exit your inventory and hold down F3 and press H at the same time on your keyboard, then when you go back into your inventory, there will be other information. You can now see it says light blue wool. Then there is a hash 0035, that is the ID of the wool, the number that the block has in Minecraft. And after that, there's a / and a number, and that is its damage value. So you can see that all of these have a code of 35, but they have a different damage value. So they're the same block with different damage. So for our clay down here, you can see that the lime green clay has a damage of 5. So in here, I'm telling it to check for lime green clay. If it finds lime green clay, it will affect the closest player with jump boost. Now you remember that we're pretending that this command block is the player. So the closest player to a player that has stained clay under it is that player. So in this case, we're just affecting the person who stood on the clay. And then we have the effect command to give jump boost. Speed on the blue clay is very similar. So we're checking for exactly the same thing, except instead of 5, we have a damage value of 3, which is the light blue damage value. And we've changed the effect type to speed. Finally, we've got fire resist on sandstone. Now this one here, you'll notice that when I stand on this one, it gives me particles. If I stand on this one, it gives me the effect, but it doesn't show any particles. And all I've done is very similar thing, checking for sandstone, and I have put true on the very end of the effect command, which is the hide particles tag. So if you don't want the particles to appear, you have to put the fire resistance, the name of the effect, the duration, how many seconds it should play for, the value, so this is fire resistance 1. If I put a 1 there, it would be fire resistance 2. And then you can put a true on the end to hide the particles. And then finally, we have this one here, which is putting water breathing on all types of clay. So you can see that here I'm looking for stained hardened clay, and then in the damage section I've put -1. Now this tells it that it doesn't matter what kind of damage value it has, any kind of clay will have this effect. So I can put down some yellow stained clay, and I will get water breathing when I stand on it, because it doesn't matter what damage value it has as long as it's clay. So this way, if you want to apply the same effect to multiple blocks, you only need one command to do it. Alright, so the next question that I had was how to summon a wall at an armor stand. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. Some are better used in certain situations than others. So over here we have an armor stand called wall. Now you can summon one of these armor stands using this command right here. Again, you can download this world and open it in Minecraft to have a look. So we're summoning an armor stand. In this case, we're putting it 5 blocks in the -Z and half a block up, which is where the armor stand was over there relative to this command block. Giving it a custom name of wall. Now you can target your armor stand using a score if you prefer. I use a name in this case. And just for safety, we've put no gravity 1. This means that if the block under the armor stand breaks, it won't fall down, it'll float in the air. And I've also put custom name visible just so you can see what it's called. So if I push this button, it's going to summon a new wall armor stand over here. Now there's 2 ways that we can build a wall around this armor stand. The first one is a lot simpler. We basically hide a copy of the castle that we want to build somewhere in the world that we know where it is. So this could be under the ground somewhere or next to your redstone room, out of sight of the player. And what we can do is we can use a clone command to copy it to where the armor stand is. So that's this command block right here. So let's have a look at this. We are executing on the wall, similar to what we were doing in the previous example. We are pretending that this is all happening from the location of the armor stand. And we are cloning from these exact coordinates right here. Wait. Oh yes. So what we're specifying here is a box coordinate radius. It looks a little bit messy, but what we have here is 2 sets of 3 coordinates. So we're specifying the 2 edges of a box. So this first coordinate right here, -1485 to 741, is this coordinate right here in the bottommost corner of the castle. You can see the coordinates when I press F3. You can see that it highlights the block you're looking at, so you can easily see which block you're trying to copy. Something really cool, by the way, is if you type a command into your chat, such as set block, you can then press tab and it will automatically complete the coordinate of the block that you're looking at. Anyway, so when our first coordinate is pointing at this lowest point in the castle's location, and our second coordinate, the second three sets of coordinates, is showing the coordinates of this point here. So everything between these 2 points creates a box which encompasses the entire castle. It'll copy everything between that point and that point right there. And then our third set of coordinates is using the tilde symbol, which is the relative indicator, telling it that it should be doing it where the armor stand is. So it's saying that from the armor stand, it's copying it to -2 in the x, the same height in the y, and -2 in the z. Now for the clone command, you always need to specify the lowest coordinate point for where you want the castle to appear. So if we have a look at the ground here, we can see that we are facing towards -z and -x when we look in this direction. So the corner of our castle is going to appear over here in the positive x and z. So we are telling it to summon it -2 in the z and -2 in the x. So the lowest corner coordinate-wise of our castle is right here. So that's where we're telling it to put it. So if I press the clone castle button, it's going to create the castle by cloning it from there to here. If I was to put a new block in here, and we pressed the clone command, it would put that block over here as well. So that's pretty handy. I also have a delete castle button here. This is literally just doing very similar. It's executing on the wall to fill everything within this range here, which is 2 points. Again, this is the first set of points, and this is the second set of points, and it'll fill everything in that space with air if it is sandstone. So it's actually only replacing sandstone. So our clay box here, this is a safety thing, will remain. I'm just deleting the sandstone. But if you had a castle made of multiple things, you can just get rid of all of this and it would still work fine. Now the other method is a little bit more difficult, but in some cases it might be necessary. So if you don't know where this castle is, because you have to specify the location of the castle in this command, and you don't know where the castle is, or if there's no room to build this castle because it's just too big. Imagine if it was really, really tall or something. Then you can actually create this castle from command blocks. So right here we have another fill line. Now you'll notice this has got wool in it, not redstone blocks, and that's because it's a one-time pulse. So we have a button down here. If I click it, it's going to build our castle over here for us, and it's doing it in stages. So this is exactly the same technique as before, except now we have redstone block on the bottom and wool on the top. You can see over here we have wool at the bottom and redstone block at the top, and what this does is it'll only pulse it once instead of constantly. So what we're doing to create the tower is basically doing a series of fill commands, executing at the wall and filling in an area around it with sandstone. So I'll show you the steps that this goes through. So first of all, it creates the tower. Let me get a redstone block so we can power these. So first, it creates the tower. So it's just made a big box here, a big solid box of sandstone. The next thing it does is it places a merlon. A merlon is the technical name for one of these little spikes on the top of the tower. So we're placing one merlon here. Again, this is it. Now this is a set block command, and it's telling it to put it 2 blocks above the armor stand, 2 in the X and 2 in the Z, and it's putting sandstone. So that's that corner right there. Now we're going to place a second merlon, which is next to it, and this is pretty much the same command, except we've changed the coordinates. It's now level with. This is the equivalent of doing this in the X. And then we place a third merlon here using this one, and again it's the same command. Now we have a -2 here. And then what we can now do is, rather than placing all of these individually around it, we can actually clone them. So here we have our clone command again, except now, and it looks a little messy, I know, and it's a little hard to read, but we've got 3 sets of 3 coordinates. So this first 3 set of coordinates is specifying one corner of our 3 merlons. Then this one here is specifying another corner of our 3 merlons. And finally, this is telling it where to clone it to. So this is the negative most point. So -2 in the X, level in the Z, and 2 up in the Y is right here relative to this wall armor stand. So when we activate this clone, it's going to clone the 3 merlons across and place them right here. This is just a case of basically puzzling it together. And then this one here clones the exact same merlons, except now it's cloning them an extra block across, like so. And then finally, we have a fill command here that just hollows out the center of the castle and replaces everything in this area with air, like so. Boop. And that's it, the castle's built. So that's kind of two ways to do it. The clone method is definitely easier, but if you don't have room or you don't know where you don't know where the redstone is going to be, so you don't know what coordinates your template castle would be at, then you can build it from scratch using command blocks like this. So this is the Mine Gauge map that we are currently working on. It is a huge map built to look like Elizabethan London, and we're using it as a way of teaching children using games. We've got a ton of puzzles and things installed in here. We've got custom NPCs installed, so we have all these cool guys standing around that you can talk to. Some of them have quests for you, that kind of thing. Beautiful map. And the question that the next person has asked is quite related to this. They wanted to know whether we're doing any other areas of the world other than London. And the answer is definitely. We are just about finished completing this section, and we are going to be working on more maps in the future. Next up, we're going to be doing the Space Age map, which is going to be amazing, I'm sure. And we also want to do an ancient history map dealing with the Mayans and the Aztecs and things like that. Those are the ones that we're planning to do next. If you've got any suggestions for what you wanted us to do instead first, do let me know. This is St. Paul's Cathedral, built in its resplendent glory by our builders, and it just looks fantastic. Alright, so the next question I was asked is, how can you make it so that when you have a game with several classes, there are items which only players from a certain class can pick up? So over here, I have the simulation to join two classes, the red class and the blue class, and over here I have some items that cannot be picked up. So you can actually see that I'm using a scoreboard on these items, so I cannot pick these up by standing on them because I'm not a member of either of these two classes. So we've got a little bit of setup here. I am using teams to tell which class a player belongs to. You could use a score if you prefer, but I've used teams in this example. So what we have first is a little bit of initialization. So I've got this here, which is another one of these single pulse commands, similar to that one over there, which is just adding some scoreboards to our world. So we're adding the red team, we're adding the blue team. These are our two classes. You could call these warrior and archer if you wished. Next, we've got a scoreboard called item type. We're adding the item type scoreboard here, and it is a dummy type scoreboard, which means that it will not be edited by anything else. You have some kinds of scoreboard which track how much health you have, or which tell how far you've walked, and Minecraft will modify the number in those scoreboards as you walk or as you take damage. But a dummy scoreboard just sits there, and you can use commands to change the number inside it. So that's just the setup. When you can see the item type scoreboard is set on the sidebar there, you can go scoreboard, objectives, set display sidebar, item type to show it, and you can go scoreboard, objectives, set display sidebar, and then blank to hide it. But just for now, we're going to leave it on the sidebar so you can see what's going on. Now over here we have another one of these one-time pulse clocks, except we've attached a hopper clock to it. So what we have here is basically a hopper, two hoppers facing into each other, and they have an item bouncing back and forth. And there's a comparator which is measuring how many items are inside. So when the hopper moves into this minecart, into this hopper, it will turn the comparator on, and when it flows back across, it turns the comparator off, and that causes this to constantly pulse. Say hello. Here's our say command again. You can see it's a lot slower than our 20 hertz hyperclock over here. This is because in this case I don't think it needs to be any faster, and it's going to be a lot less intensive for the Minecraft world to process these commands if they're going slower. So we basically have the same sort of thing here. It's constantly filling all of these with redstone and then replacing them with wool. Now what we're doing here is we are giving all red wool, which is an item only the red class can pick up, a score of 1. So you can see what I'm doing here is scoreboard player set. Any item is going to get an item type of score of 1 if, and then we have NBT data here. This is information about the item. In this case, we're looking for wool with a damage of 14. Now 14 is this damage value for red wool. If we go into our inventory with F3B turned on, we'll be able to see that red wool has got a damage value of 14. So that's this item over here. Now, the reason I cannot normally pick this up, by the way, is when I summon this item, I am giving it a pickup delay of 1024. Now, pickup delay is a tag you can give an item which will tell it how long it has to wait before players are allowed to pick it up. So what I'm doing here is I have set it to a really high number that is not going to... It means when it's spawned and the player is stood right by it, they just can't pick it up because it's waiting for that cooldown. So we've given this red wool an item type score of 1, and then we give blue wool, which is the item that only the blue class can pick up, a score of 2. So again, we're doing the same thing, but we're checking for a damage of 11, which is the damage for blue wool. Now, any item with an item type score of at least 1, so we're going to entity data it and change its pickup delay to 1024. So every time this clock pulses, its pickup delay is reset, which means it cannot be picked up because it always has a pickup delay, and it's constantly trying to count it down to 0 so the player can pick it up, but this keeps refreshing it back up. This can be any number you like, really, as long as it's higher than the time it takes for the clock to pulse. So we're using the score item type min equals 1 to specify all items that have at least a score of 1, which encompasses this because it has a score of 1, and this because it has a score of 2. Now, to pick up the wool, what we're going to do is we are going to execute on all players who are in the red team, and this is where you could put a scoreboard objective score if you preferred. We're going to execute on all of them to have it to entity data any items with an item type of exactly 1, which is item type equals 1, item type min equals 1, which is how Minecraft says exactly 1, within 0 blocks of the player. We're going to set the pickup delay to 0. So you'll see that if I now join the red team, I can pick up this piece of wool by standing on it, because I am 0 blocks away from it and I have set its pickup delay to 0. So once again, we've got our item, I can pick it up. But I can't pick up the blue wool because the blue wool is only having its pickup delay set to 0 by players with a score of blue. So this is the way that I'm going to do this. There are lots of ways to do this, and you're welcome to change this over to suit yourself better. So here's the red, and now that I'm on the blue team, I cannot pick it up. It works fairly well. Obviously, if a blue team player was stood right here and a red team player came to pick up the item, the blue player might get it. So that's something to consider, and there are ways around that, but I'll leave that for you to explore. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions that you wanted to ask me to be covered in the next video, then there is a Google form linked in the video description. Please use that, not the comments, so it helps me to understand your question more fully. If you have any questions about this video, feel free to post them in the comments of this video, and I will do my best to answer them. Or if you know the answer to a question that somebody else has posted, help each other out and give an answer yourself. I have a map making series if you're interested in command blocks and map making, where I go through making a map from scratch, and I talk about the problems that I come across and I show how I solve them, things like that. Which you might find interesting. And I also have a series called Game Mode 4 where I create little command block contraptions which sort of make changes to survival gameplay experiences, which you might find interesting too. I will see you in the next video.